Hey guys, this is Miss Matthews. I'm going to go over the first couple of pages in your Already book for this week for your reading. We're going to be talking about poetry this week, and today we're going to talk about some of the structural elements that you're going to see in poetry. All right, we're going to look at a few important words. So let's look up here at the top. It says, a poem has features that you can both see and hear. Each line in a poem is called a verse, and you know when we come to a bolded word, we always underline it or circle it because that tells us that it's probably going to be important later on. Several verses grouped together form stanzas. There's another bolded word. And these are structural elements that you see. And we've heard something similar before called narrative elements. But structural elements are found in poetry. Other elements in a poem are ones that you hear. Meter. Here's another one. Now, we've heard the word meter also in math. So this is kind of odd that we find it in poetry too. So let's see what a meter means when we're talking about poetry. Meter sets up a pattern of strong and weak syllables in each verse. Rhythm. And you know, you've heard that in music with Miss McDaniel. Rhythm is the regular pattern of sounds in the whole poem, like the beats in music. Rhyme, you've heard that word before. Rhyme repeats the same ending sounds in different words. Poets use these elements to express their ideas in new and surprising ways. So we're going to look at the poem below, and it's called Bigfoot's Complaint. Bigfoot's got something wrong with him. So let's try to find out what's wrong with Bigfoot and why is he complaining. And as we do that, I want you to listen to see if you can hear any rhyming words, to see if you can hear rhythm. And I want you to figure out how many stanzas there are and how many verses there are, because we're going to take this poem apart and we're going to look at it. But let's read about it first, and let's say what's wrong with Bigfoot. Bigfoot's Complaint by John Hanson. Why do they have to call me that? I'm more than just a pair of feet. If humans took a closer look, they'd see my eyes are rather sweet. But I walk these woods and hide my face, my footprints left in mud and snow. The rest of me they'll never see, so I'm called by what they know. So that was a pretty cute little poem. Did you hear any rhyming words or did you notice any verses? Let's refer back to the top what a verse is. Each line in a poem is called a verse. So if we go back to this poem and look, we have 8 verses because we have 8 lines. So, and then if we go back to stanzas, remember all the verses grouped together form a stanza. And if you look here between, you see kind of the gap between those two, that kind of helps you figure out this would be stanza 1 and this would be stanza 2. Sometimes poems can be short like this one, or sometimes they can be fairly long. So it's important to always group them by your stanzas. Okay? Did you hear any meter? How I kind of said it a little louder, and then some of the other words I didn't say quite as loud. And the rhythm, how it kind of had a beat. And we did have some rhyming words. What about feet? You see what rhymes with feet? Sweet. And then down here, let's go to our second one. What about snow and no? Those were 2 rhyming words. So be careful with your rhyming words and make sure that it has the same ending sound. Okay? All right, let's go over to page 299 and let's fill in our chart. Some of these we just did as we were going over it. Okay, I'm going to get y'all know how the camera does sometimes. All right, so let's look at the first one, a verse. Let's just review a little bit. A verse, lines in a poem. So if we go back to Bigfoot's Complaint, we said that there were 8 verses. So you could put any of those on there that you wanted to. I'm going to put the first one. Why do they call me that? That would be an example of a verse. Why do they call me that? Poor Bigfoot. All right, the second one, stanzas. Several verses grouped together. These are kind of like your paragraphs in your poem. And then the next one, you have 2 stanzas. That's kind of a review. All right, rhyme. Words that have the same ending sound. And notice I underlined the word ending because that's important. Don't get mixed up and say, okay, well, these words have the same beginning sound, so they rhyme. No, they must have the same ending sound. And we said feet, sweet, and snow, and no would be some examples. All right, let's look at your next one. Now, if we were at school, we could do this, but you can still do this at home. You can share your chart with your parents. You can share it with your brother and sister. You can read this poem to them and let them play it like a little game. See if they can do the verses and the stanzas and the rhymes. And talk about, let each one of you take turns reading it to each other and listen for those sounds. Listen for that rhythm. All right, and these are some words you're going to hear a lot this week. You're going to hear structural elements. Remember, we said these are parts of a poem. The meter has to do with your syllables. Verse are your lines in a poem. Your rhythm, like your beats. Remember, I told you, you've heard that a lot in music. And then you've got stanzas. It's kind of like your paragraphs. And then your rhyme, your same ending sounds. Okay? So I want y'all to make sure that you're doing your lessons this week. And I will come back later and post tomorrow. Tomorrow we will read, we'll read Walking Big Willie tomorrow. So we'll see what that one's about. Okay? That one's a little longer than Bigfoot's Complaint. So we'll see what Walking Big Willie is about. All right, y'all continue to work hard. Okay? Do your best. And I will talk to you in a bit. Have a great afternoon.